The first thing I saw when I pulled into my driveway wasn't the peaceful sunset over Sunnyvale Estates. It was Vanessa Harrington, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, standing on my lawn sobbing like she'd just lost a loved one. Big, heaving, Oscar-worthy wails that made half the block poke their heads out. "He's harassing me," she cried, waving a stack of papers like they were divorce papers from Satan himself. $6.75 in fines for clear violations, and he refuses to pay. I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood anymore. Every head snapped toward me. Grocery bags cutting into my palms, heart slamming against my ribs. What fines? What violations? I'd never even spoken to this woman. When I finally found my voice and asked what the hell was going on, the tears vanished like someone flipped a switch. She straightened, perfect blonde bob not even moving, and hit me with the coldest smile I'd ever seen. "I am the elected president of Sunnyvale Estates HOA," she declared, loud enough for the couple walking their golden retriever to stop and stare. "People like you don't get to question my authority." Just like that, the script was written, the jury seated, and I was already cast as the neighborhood monster. And this was only the opening scene. My name's Ethan Brooks. 2 weeks earlier, if you'd asked me, I would have told you life in Sunnyvale Estates was perfect. Quiet cul-de-sac, wife Rebecca who could stare down federal judges without blinking, and a house we bought specifically because the HOA rules looked light on paper. No micromanaging lawn police, no mailbox color dictatorships. Just normal people living normal lives. Or so we thought. That Friday, I'd had a brutal week designing graphics for a client who changed his mind 17 times. All I wanted was to unload these bags, crack a beer, and maybe grill something before Rebecca got back from her judicial conference. She'd texted earlier, "Be lazy this weekend, babe. You've earned it." God, I love that woman. Calm, razor sharp, the kind of prosecutor turned judge who made courtrooms sit up straight. The house sat on the edge of the pines, wide porch, stone fireplace, everything we dreamed about. Neighbors had seemed friendly enough when we moved in last year. Block parties, borrowed tools, the usual suburban pleasantries. No red flags. Until now. Vanessa didn't knock politely. She hammered like she was serving an eviction. When I opened the door, she was already mid-performance, pastel blazer crisp, clipboard clutched like a shield. Violation of community appearance standards, unregistered modifications to your deck, non-compliant landscaping, and that hideous truck parked in plain view. She recited like she'd memorized it in the mirror. "Payment due immediately, or we escalate." I blinked. We're not even under strict HOA enforcement here. The covenants are minimal. You can't just. She cut me off with a theatrical gasp. Refusal to comply is harassment. I have witnesses. 3 neighbors had already drifted closer, phones half raised. Rebecca appeared behind me, still in travel clothes, voice ice calm. "Ma'am, unless you have actual county paperwork, you're trespassing. Please leave our property." Vanessa's smile cracked for half a second, then she pulled out her phone and started recording. "I don't feel safe. He's threatening me." 10 minutes later, red and blue lights painted our house like a carnival from hell. Neighbors poured onto lawns. Phones rolled. The deputy stepped out and Vanessa ran straight into his arms, tears flowing again. "Officer, thank God." He lunged at me. I was only enforcing the rules we all agreed to. I stood frozen in my own doorway while the crowd nodded like they'd rehearsed it. Rebecca stepped forward, voice steady. "Deputy, these documents are fraudulent. We bought this property because it's outside heavy HOA control. You'll find nothing on file with the county." The deputy looked uncertain, flipping through Vanessa's perfectly sealed papers. Whispers rippled. $6.75. That truck does look ugly. Maybe she's right about standards. Perception was winning, and Vanessa knew it. She dabbed her eyes, smiled sweetly at the deputy. "I've been dealing with his aggression all week. I just couldn't take it anymore." Aggression all week? I'd never seen her before today. But the seed was planted. The deputy left with a warning to work it out peacefully, but the damage was done. As the lights faded, Vanessa gave me one last look, triumphant, predatory, and mouthed 2 words only I could see. Game on. Saturday morning the silence hit like a slap. No group chat pings. No, "Good morning, neighbors," memes. I checked the app. I'd been removed overnight. When I stepped outside for the paper, Mrs. Delgado from across the street suddenly found her roses fascinating. Bob, my buddy who'd helped me build the deck last summer, suddenly remembered he had to mow right that second. Curtains twitched. Doors closed. By noon I learned why. Vanessa had called an emergency community safety meeting the night before. Coffee, donuts, and a PowerPoint titled Protecting Sunnyvale from Within. Fake screenshots of me threatening her. Edited clips of me simply unloading groceries twisted into suspicious behavior. She'd painted me as the angry outsider tearing down property values and endangering kids. Half the neighborhood ate it up. That afternoon, Mrs. Delgado accidentally mentioned while watering her flowers, "Someone was photographing your house earlier, Ethan." Insurance purposes, I think. My stomach dropped. My company hadn't sent anyone. Then the new private Facebook group popped up, Sunnyvale Watchdogs, filled with photos of my truck, my porch, even a blurry shot of me taking out the trash labeled possible concealment. Neighbors I'd barbecued with were commenting, "We have to protect our families. This can't go unchecked." Sunday brought the first forged letter, official-looking notice of property reassessment, claiming my taxes would jump 20% due to ongoing violations. The seal looked real enough on a phone camera. Another letter demanded environmental compliance fees for my perfectly legal native plants. At the corner store, the cashier suddenly couldn't make eye contact. At the gas station, the pumps mysteriously went down when I pulled up. Doors were shutting faster than I could knock. I tried talking to Bob. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Vanessa says you're bringing the whole neighborhood down, man. People are scared." 7 years of friendship reduced to that. I walked home feeling like a ghost in my own life. Monday, the real escalation arrived. Vanessa showed up again, this time with a tall guy in a fake county vest and a shiny badge that screamed costume shop. They strolled onto my property without knocking. "Official inspection," the guy grunted, snapping pictures of my perfectly fine gutter. Vanessa beamed behind him. "Failure to comply will result in liens and possible seizure." I pointed out the pixelated seal, the misspelled county name, the 4-digit badge number. Neighbors who'd gathered just rolled their eyes. He's always got an excuse. Perception was still winning. But I'd started recording everything on my phone now, quietly, patiently, because something in me had shifted. I wasn't just enduring anymore. I was watching, learning, waiting. By Wednesday night, the vandalism hit. "Respect community standards" spray-painted in dripping red across my garage door. Eggs smashed on every window. One truck tire slashed clean. I stood there in the dark, fists clenched, smelling rotten egg and rage, when a shaky knock came. Bob stood on my porch looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Ethan, I never wanted this," he whispered, tears already falling. "She's got me." Piece by piece, the confession spilled out in my kitchen under the single light. 2 years ago, Bob's construction company had a project collapse, massive debts, hidden from his wife, license at risk. Vanessa had somehow gotten every document. She'd promised to make it disappear if he fed her information about me, Rebecca's schedule, when I was alone, which neighbors were wavering. He'd been her eyes and ears for 6 months. "She said if I stopped, she'd ruin me," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry, man. My best friend turned into a spy by blackmail." The betrayal burned hotter than the spray paint. But instead of exploding, I felt something colder settle in. Clarity. Because now I had the missing piece. And Vanessa had no idea I knew. Bob didn't leave until almost dawn. He chain-smoked at my table while the whole ugly story poured out. How Vanessa had started neighborly visits to his garage. How innocent questions turned into detailed surveillance requests. How she'd tightened the noose until he couldn't breathe. "She already knew everything about Rebecca's court calendar," he admitted. "She timed every move so it looked like you were always the aggressor." I should have hated him. Part of me did. But the bigger part realized he was just another victim of the same machine. Vanessa didn't just want fines, she wanted control. And she'd weaponized fear, debt, and small-town gossip to get it. When Bob finally left, head down, I sat in the dark and opened my laptop. Every photo, every fake document, every text Bob had forwarded me in secret, I started building a folder. Timestamped. Watermarked. Ironclad. The mandatory community meeting notice slid under my door Tuesday morning. Same fake gold seal. Same threatening language. attendance required, or acknowledgement of guilt. Rebecca read it once and set her jaw. This isn't a meeting, Ethan. It's a public execution. I knew she was right. But if I didn't show, the narrative was hers forever. So Friday night we walked into the community center together. The room was packed. Lawn chairs, snacks, phones ready. Vanessa stood at the front like a televangelist, pastel blazer glowing under the lights. When she saw me, she smiled the smile of someone who thought the game was already over. "Welcome, neighbors," she began, voice dripping honey. "Tonight we address a serious threat to our community standards." The PowerPoint started. First slide. My truck, captioned, "Eyesore endangering children." Chuckles rippled. Second slide. Me mowing the lawn from a weird angle that made it look like I was yelling. Aggressive behavior toward passers-by. Actual laughter now. Phones went up. Rebecca's hand tightened on my knee, but she stayed silent, for now. Slide after slide. Grocery bags twisted into suspicious packages. My porch light left on once labeled blatant disregard for energy compliance. Even a blurry shot of Rebecca's car with the caption, "Possible judicial interference in neighborhood affairs." The crowd ate it up. Someone shouted, "Throw him out." Vanessa raised her hands for silence, savoring every second. "Effective immediately," she announced. "I recommend $6,000 in cumulative fines. Non-payment will trigger property seizure proceedings." The room erupted in applause. People who'd once borrowed my ladder were cheering my financial ruin. Rebecca leaned in close. "They've already decided." This was never about rules. It was about power. I sat there letting the noise wash over me, fists clenched under the table. Every instinct screamed to stand up and scream the truth. But I didn't. Because I'd learned from Rebecca, sometimes the best way to win is to let them think they've already won. So I stayed quiet. Watched. Recorded every lie on the tiny camera in my shirt pocket. And inside my chest something steel-hard formed. Vanessa wanted a show? Fine. I'd give her the grand finale she'd never forget. The meeting dragged on another hour of testimonials, neighbors repeating Vanessa's lies like gospel. When it finally ended, people avoided my eyes on the way out. Vanessa lingered at the podium, basking in victory, already planning her next move. She had no idea the trap was already closing. Saturday morning she arrived for the coup de grace. Clipboard in hand, fake inspector in tow, and half the neighborhood trailing behind like it was Black Friday at a liquidation sale. Lawn chairs, phones, kids on shoulders. The whole circus had come to watch the execution. Vanessa marched up my driveway like she owned the deed. "Today we conduct the final inspection," she announced to the cheering crowd. "Hand over your keys." County protocol for non-compliant properties. The fake inspector stepped forward, badge glinting plastic. Structural concerns. Possible septic violations. Neighbors nodded solemnly. I stood on my porch with Rebecca, heart hammering but voice steady. "You have no warrant. You have no real authority. Leave." Vanessa's smile turned razor sharp. "Ladies and gentlemen, more excuses. If he has nothing to hide, why is he stalling?" She produced a shiny key from her blazer pocket. Standard emergency access key. County issued. The crowd murmured approval. Phones zoomed in. She climbed the porch steps like a conquering general, slid the key into the deadbolt, and turned. Nothing. She jiggled it harder. Still nothing. A confused whisper floated from the back. "Why doesn't it fit?" Vanessa laughed too loud. "Old locks, compatibility issues." She twisted with both hands, sweat beading on her perfect forehead. The crowd shifted. The fake inspector's pen slowed. Doubt crept in like fog. Rebecca stepped forward, voice cutting through the noise like a gavel. "A real county inspector would have a warrant. Do you have one?" Vanessa froze. The key still stuck uselessly in the lock. And that's when the sirens started. Red and blue lights washed over the crowd as two sheriff's cruisers rolled in. Phones that had been filming my humiliation now swung toward Vanessa. She recovered fast, rushing down the steps with fresh tears. "Officer, thank God. He's obstructing a lawful inspection. The whole community is terrified." The lead deputy, a tall man named Ramirez I'd seen around town, stepped out, expression unreadable. He glanced at the fake inspector, at Vanessa's stack of papers, then at me and Rebecca. His eyes lingered on my wife a second longer. Recognition hit. Posture snapped straight. "Judge Brooks," he said quietly, almost reverent. Didn't expect to see you here, ma'am. The crowd went dead silent. You could hear the collective gulp. Rebecca nodded once, calm as ever. Good morning, Deputy Ramirez. I believe we have a very serious situation involving fraud and impersonation of county officials. Vanessa's face drained of color so fast her makeup looked clownish. The key finally slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the porch. Deputy Ramirez turned to her, voice flat. Ma'am, those documents. Now. Her hands shook as she handed them over. He flipped through once, jaw tightening. Wrong seals. Misspelled county name. These are forgeries. He looked at the fake inspector. Name, department, badge number. The man stammered, eyes darting to Vanessa. Impersonating a public official is a felony, Ramirez snapped. Gasps rippled. Phones that had cheered Vanessa minutes earlier now captured her collapse. She tried one last theatrical sob. This is a misunderstanding. He's dangerous. He's been threatening everyone. Ramirez didn't blink. Catherine, sorry, Vanessa Harrington, you are under arrest for fraud, harassment, forgery, and filing false police reports. Hands behind your back. The click of cuffs was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The fake inspector tried to slink away, but another deputy had him in seconds. The crowd stood frozen. The same people who'd applauded my ruin now staring at their fallen idol like she'd grown a second head. 2 days later, Vanessa sat in county court wearing an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her personality. The same woman who'd weaponized tears now had none left. Prosecutor after prosecutor laid out the evidence. My quiet recordings, Bob's tearful statement. He'd turned himself in with full cooperation. Every time-stamped forgery. Neighbors were subpoenaed one by one. Mrs. Delgado cried on the stand, admitting she'd spread rumors without checking. The hardware store owner apologized for refusing service. Even Bob faced the judge, voice breaking as he described the blackmail. Judge Williams didn't mince words. Targeting the family of a sitting judge is not a neighborhood dispute. It is an attack on the justice system itself. The restitution order was brutal. Every dollar of fake fines, vandalism repairs, lost business, legal fees. Vanessa's face crumpled when the number hit 6 figures. The courtroom that had once been her stage now watched her shrink. But the real victory came after. Sunnyvale Estates rewrote its bylaws overnight. No complaint moved forward without third-party verification. Zero tolerance for mob harassment. They even started an annual Truth and Verification Day workshop. Law enforcement, lawyers, even psychologists teaching residents how to spot forged documents and emotional manipulation. The same block that had shunned me now showed up with paint rollers to fix my garage door. Mike from the corner store delivered free groceries for 6 months. The hardware store comped every repair material. Irony so thick you could spread it on toast. Vanessa had claimed she was protecting property values. Once she was gone, home prices actually rose. Turns out having a federal judge on the block is good for resale. Rebecca and I sat on our repaired porch the first quiet evening after the verdict, watching kids ride bikes again like nothing had happened. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You could have exploded at any point, she said softly. But you waited. You built the case. That's why we won. I smiled, the steel in my chest finally softening into something warmer. Learned from the best. The neighborhood changed in ways Vanessa never intended. People started questioning instead of nodding. Whispers became conversations. And me? I started a quiet side gig consulting for other families targeted by power-hungry board members. Turns out Sunnyvale wasn't the only place where one Karen decided she was judge, jury, and executioner. Looking back, the craziest part wasn't the fake liens or the spy or even the public humiliation. It was how fast ordinary people handed over their common since the moment someone waved an official-looking paper and cried about the children. Vanessa didn't create the fear. She just poured gasoline on it. And when the truth finally lit the match, the whole thing burned down exactly as it deserved. So tell me, Neighbors, was Ethan wrong for quietly gathering proof instead of screaming back? Or was Vanessa the real criminal for turning community standards into her personal dictatorship? Drop your verdict in the comments. Because after everything that happened in Sunnyvale Estates, I'm still not sure who the neighborhood really owes an apology to. Maybe it's time we all took a long, hard look in the mirror.